Today on the Legacy Podcast, we're talking to the Queen of Clarity, Teara Parker, who's going to let you know the importance of the little things in order to create efficiency and effectiveness in the big things. Stay tuned right here on Legacy. Hey, welcome back to the show that inspires you most. I'm your host for Legacy, Kinsley Jordan, your winning coach, who is each and every day encouraging you to crush your goals, ignite your dreams, and forge your legacy right here on the Legacy Podcast. Hey, for all of you people who are maybe a little bit disorganized, I got a treat for you today because we have the Queen of Clarity right here, Mrs. Tiara Parker, who's going to help us not only determine and show us how we can be efficient and effective in the very big areas of our life, but most importantly, that by doing that, in order to get there, it actually starts by focusing on the small areas of your life. So, Tierra, welcome so much to the Legacy Podcast.
Thank you.
We're so glad to have you with you. So, first I want to start with, you're the director for here in the local area, Enid, Oklahoma, for MOPS, which is Mothers of Preschoolers,
yes.
right? Okay,
yep.
So I got a couple preschoolers. Mm-hmm. Tell us what it is that you do in the organization that you're involved with. And what is MOPS?
Sure. So MOPS it's Mothers of Preschoolers is what it stands for, and it is a worldwide Christian organization. We've got 4,000 groups throughout the world. Yeah. And we focus on just pouring into moms. Moms, once they start to have kids, they just lose their sense of identity. Yeah. And they just focus on autopilot. How do I keep my kids alive? Yeah. And so we just pour into them physically, spiritually. We got food, coffee, free childcare, and then sprinkle a little bit of Jesus in there throughout.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So as the Queen of Clarity, as you're going to call yourself for the rest of your life, literally starting right now.
No pressure.
As the Queen of Clarity. So have you always been an organized person? Because how Tierra and I, basically how I found you is not only do we go to church together, but most importantly, I watch her Facebook as she puts out these efficiencies and like little to-do lists, little things that encourage you each and every day to be able to say, hey, you can do this. And honestly, it was really encouraging to me. I know a lot of people that follow you on Facebook and see what you do. But it seems like from your posts, you're a very organized person.
If my husband were to be watching this right now, he would be like, why is Kinsley interviewing my wife? She's the most disorganized person. Yes.
No way.
So I was born and raised in a home. I was the oldest of 4 kids, and our house was a disaster. We always had at least 4 dogs, 2 cats. You know, my dad would rescue animals from trees. He was a tree. Anyway, so we would have raccoons in our house.
Animal rescuer.
Tree animal rescuer. So he would chop down trees for a living, like storm damage, all that stuff. And we just never learned the basic skills of taking care of a house. We never learned the importance of taking care of a house, how that affects your marriage, how that affects your parenting. So no, our house was just always a mess, and that was normal. So it wasn't until I got married to my complete opposite husband, who is military man through and through. Yeah. And you can look just walking into our closets. You can tell that's his side, that's my side. His is color coordinated, mine is hanging up. Yeah. So we've got something going on.
Yeah, welcome to the Jordan house as well. there's a total and complete difference between I had to teach Brooke how I like my shirts folded, and she looked at me and said, this is a joke, right? And at that moment, I thought, wow, we've been married 2 days. I think the divorce is on its way, unfortunately.
Yeah. So
it wasn't.
We've been married almost 13 years, and we still have, I didn't know he was hanging on to these things. It'd be really nice if you would put the toilet lid down. It's really? It's just you and me in the house. Why does it matter? He's like, if you could just work on that, that'd be great. So there's just a lot of little things, like how to load a dishwasher. It's in there. Yeah. Our first year of marriage was, do not let dishes soak. And I'm like, what? But as you get older and you start to have kids and you have all these other things in the mix, you're like, if I let those dishes soak, nothing's ever going to get done because that's all I'm focusing on now. But no, it's been a lot of training, mainly through my husband's help and grace and praying and actually realizing how being organized can benefit you.
So was that a conscious thought, a moment? Because I'm sure there's many of us viewers and listeners out there who were much like me. I really didn't realize I was disorganized. I always kind of thought I had myself together until I started tracking what I did and realized I didn't do anything like I thought I was doing it. Was there a moment where it clicked for you, where everything changed, where you said, I've got to get my life together?
So, there again, I don't know the exact date, but there was just this period of my life. It was probably when my husband was deployed. We had just moved to South Dakota. It was the middle of winter, and he got like a short notice deployment. And so all of a sudden I'm in a new city. I've got 2 kids under 3 and it's snowing and you can't leave the house. And I just felt like I couldn't do anything. And everything just seemed overwhelming. Like, well, I can't do this. I can't do the dishes. I can't be a good mom. I can't do this. And eventually it just drugged on me that if I keep having these thoughts that I can't do anything, I'm not going to do anything. So I just had to focus on what I really wanted to do first and foremost. Like, one, be a good mom. Okay, well, how do I be a good mom? How can I fix my behavior to show that I like my kids and I like to be a mom? And this is what I have always wanted to do. Like, how do I put that plan into action?
And I think that's so completely true with not just being a mom, not just being a dad, but really just business-wise of what we do is that a lot of times we look at things and we frankly get overwhelmed, whether it's a project we look at, whether it's, a marketing proposal, whether it's a case that we're working on, we look at it and it's like, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start with this thing. And it's easier to just say, I'm going to tackle that tomorrow. I found myself doing that, unfortunately, all the time.
I'm the best procrastinator.
The best procrastinators, trying not to be the organized people who knew. Because you look at it and you're like, I don't even know where to start with this thing. But I love what you've done is that, one of the things we focus on here in the Legacy podcast is we try to break things down into a simple step-by-step format for you to be able to execute on it today. Literally start changing your life today. And I love how you look kind of at your life and you break it down into like 5 kind of major areas that you need to balance. In order to be healthy, whole, there's 5 main areas where we talk about. Will you kind of go into what are those areas that you kind of categorize your life in? Yeah,
so I'm going to use my cheat sheet here, but when you brought this topic to me and I was like, I don't really see myself as like the queen of clarity. I can't even say it.
The queen of clarity.
But
there she is.
It was kind of like a gut check. Like, you know what? Like, I don't give myself enough credit. There's been multiple areas in my life that I have done this and it's been successful. And I'm not going to say that it's like this new revolutionary thing, but when you break things down into the categories, like the first one I had was spiritual, financial, emotional, physical, mental, professional, and then marriage with kids. So those are the big areas that I could, if I just sat down for a moment, I could think, wow, I have done this method with this area of my life. And not every single area of your life is going to be firing on all cylinders at the same time. But there's going to be areas in your life, like if there's marriage troubles, you're going to probably want to pump that area up a little bit and maybe take down a little bit of the, pick another area. That's the main breakdown of the categories.
The amazing thing about the categories too is that separately on my own, I also had these same focus areas, except instead of saying marriage and kids, I said personal because I kind of lump, being a military person myself, I lump military and business, like work and then life, like personal life into 2 separate areas. But really when you sent me the list, I was like, gosh, that's 100% true because it really is. The personal life of what's going on with family and kids and relationships. And one of the things when you look at these 5 different areas of spiritual, financial, emotional, physical, mental, professional, I guess 6 actually, and then personal is that if you are going to have to focus in one area more than the others, it's really important to know yourself, which is going to be one of the things we talk about, and realize is that the balance is going to have to shift. If you have to focus on your professional work, if you have to focus on your job, on your business, on a project, it's really important to actually realize, hey, the other areas are going to have to die down a little bit. Because if you look at those different areas in your life, all you have to give is 24 hours in a day, right? You'll never be able to give more than 100% of your effort and time into whatever those things are. And one of the things I found really helpful is that if I know I'm going to have a bunch of business trips coming up with work, I'm going to be TDY a lot, just got to, now that coronavirus is here, apparently, traveling has come to a slow down. So it's actually been great for me and my family. I look at this whole coronavirus thing as the greatest blessing we could have ever had because we get to spend time together and invest into ourselves, and it's been so huge. But one of the things I would say as a disclaimer is I tell my wife, Brooke, and the kids, hey, Dad's going to be gone a lot here in the next coming weeks. So why don't we pull back on some of these extra activities we do and spend some more time together so that when I'm gone, we're not missing this together time. So when you look at the whole pie together, you got to realize there's got to be a balance of what you're doing and where you're spending time and what that balance looks like. Did you find that true?
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely.
And how do you manage that?
So the biggest thing with managing anything is just take it day by day, sometimes hour by hour, sometimes, set a timer for 5 minutes and then tackle it.
And this is what I love about the Queen of Clarity. She breaks all the big things down into small. It's the little things.
Right.
Just like you described. It's the little things.
It's the little things. Like I said, when I was trying to think of a good analogy, it's just like a road trip. Like you look, okay, I'm driving from New York to California. What's the best way to get there? Man, there's so many different options. Okay, well, what's the best way to get through this state? And you just break it down mile by mile, state by state, and then all of a sudden you're on the other side. And you've done it.
Great example.
So I can think of a clear time when we started talking about starting Enid MOPS. And I was like, my husband was the first one that's like, you need to do this. You need to start this. This is your passion. I've never seen you so on fire for something. You need to do this. And I was like, okay, whatever. It's just so much. And he's like, stop. You need to do this. And so finally I was like, listen, if I do this, this is going to take away time from our marriage. This is going to take away time from me cleaning the house. This might take a little bit of our finances to get this off the ground. Like there's going to be other areas that are gonna, and spiritually, like we had a big spiritual battle with this as well. And so, being able to put all of your eggs into one thing isn't as easy to do as you would think, because all of the other factors play into it. All of the other areas play into it. Just lost my train of thought.
No, it's good. Well, especially when you know that these major things are coming up, when you know that you're going to, hey, okay, we're going to die as a family, and that's a really important thing to know, is that when you have a family, when you're married, when you have kids, what you do, you never do anything that's just you. It will always impact people. And for my business leaders out there, keep in mind this, is that whatever you do, whatever you're struggling with, whatever you're working through business-wise, whether it's finances, there's a lot of businesses that are struggling right now. A lot of people are having to seriously reevaluate what they're doing and how they're doing it. It doesn't ever just impact you. That's one of the things so many times, time and time again, as I talk to different businesses and consult for different people and even life coaching for people, is that people don't realize the impact that your decisions make, that it truly impacts everybody. And the decisions that you're making, you really have to kind of pull people into it, just like you were talking about with your family. What we're doing right now, the little steps we're taking to be able to accomplish these big goals, I need to make sure that I'm bringing my team into it. I need to make sure, and that's just part of being a good leader. But sometimes we're not surrounded by good leaders, so we don't know what that looks like. But that's being part of a good leader, being part of a great mom, being part of being part of a great dad, of pulling your family into it and saying, hey, listen, team, this is where we're going. This is what we need to go. This is what we need to do, and we know that we need to put focus in this area. Right. That's huge. Hey, real quick, there's so much good stuff, Thanks. We're going to be right back in just a second, because now we're going to start talking about how do you tackle, now that we know these multiple different areas of our life. We talked about spiritual, financial, emotional, physical, mental, professional, and personal, which you mentioned was marriage and kids. Once we know this, how do we take these steps? How do we take these little steps to be able to start tackling the big things? You have 4 great points to be able to do it. We'll meet you right back here on Legacy with your winning coach. Hey, thanks for watching the Legacy Podcast right here with your winning coach, Kinsley Jordan. Hit that subscribe button right now and hit the bell so you don't miss out on any great content as it's made available to you. Also, make sure you follow me right here, your winning coach, at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and on YouTube. All of those are at Kinsley Jordan. And you can even visit me and schedule me for your own event to not only be your personal coach, or also schedule for motivational speech wherever you want. Just visit us at www.kinsleyjordan.com, and I'm right there with you. Now, let's get back to the Legacy Podcast. Hey, welcome back to Legacy with your winning coach, Kinsley Jordan, right here. And I have with me the Queen of Clarity, Teara Parker, who's the director for Enid MOPS, Mothers of Preschoolers here. And we were just talking about the major areas of which, sometimes when we're trying to accomplish things in our life, we get overwhelmed because they just seem too big. Whether it's business, maybe it's a project at home, maybe it's a change in your life that you're wanting to make. Sometimes, frankly, Tierra, we just get overwhelmed with things saying, how in the world am I going to do this? And that's why today's podcast is about the little things. goals. Taking step by step the little things to be able to accomplish the big goals and the big areas of our life. And if you're just tuning in, make sure you go back and watch the first part of this segment, because now we're actually going to talk about the execution. How do we tackle these? How do we tackle these major areas of our life? How do we tackle the big projects? What is the step-by-step process we use in order to get ourselves not only organized, but really put focus on the things that we want to focus on, that we want to prioritize in our life? So the first one that you brought up is writing a list out of all of the things that stress you out, which is so funny to me, because it goes back to last week, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about priorities of write out a list. You can't complete something if you don't know what it is you're trying to complete.
Right.
So tell us about this. The first step number one is write out a list of the things that stress you out.
Yeah. So I thoroughly enjoyed listening to that priorities and goals as I was prepping for this. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're right on the same page. Like, this is great.
Yeah.
But there's so much power in getting stuff out of your head and onto paper.
Yeah.
And I start with things that stress me out, because those are the things that set me off. So if I'm walking into the house and I'm, putting kids' backpacks up or trying to get our calendar together and everything is just like Post-it note this, or, just I walk past that, I look at it, I get super frustrated that I haven't tackled that. And then I take that anger and animosity with me to whatever I'm doing next.
Yeah.
So I start with the things that totally stress me out and get that done.
Yeah.
That way, when I walk into the door, I don't see that. And I can be, oh, this is nice and organized, and focus on the next thing that stresses me out, honestly.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's like, frankly, I don't think I've heard that before. So you start with the things that drive you nuts.
Absolutely. Or drive my husband nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you start with the things that stress you out. So the things that normally I would literally put on the back burner.
Right.
That I would try to do absolutely last, or maybe just like not even look at them because I don't want to see them. You start off with them.
Yeah. So
Why?
that also depends on your personality type.
Yeah.
If you are a type B personality, which I don't even understand.
Yeah.
But if you're that type of personality, you're going to see the stuff that is stressed out and you're going to put it on the back burner forever. But me being more of a type A, when I see things that stress me out, that ruins my to-do list.
Yeah.
That ruins my goals for the day. That ruins my attitude. That ruins how I can start and end a day.
Yeah.
So if I can focus on those, and because they stress me out, once I'm done with them, it makes everything else so much easier. Like, I have accomplished something that has bettered myself.
Yeah.
Like, I've accomplished something that makes my day easier. Who wouldn't want to do that?
Yeah, for sure. So really, it's almost getting over the mental hurdle of saying, this isn't something that pains you. I know you don't like to do it, but you do like to be productive. You do like to accomplish something. And by tackling those things that frustrate you first and foremost, you actually propel yourself into more success and more efficiency. That's huge. That's awesome. Okay, so to pause there real quick, an example that I just think of in my mind of, frankly, like if you look at business or you look at your work and areas of your work, frankly, I think it's a lot of the administrative stuff that just drives me nuts. I can't stand it, whether it's responding to emails, whether it's doing, the TPS report or whatever it is, filling out the stuff you don't want to do, you don't have to do it. It's just a pain in your side. Those are the things that oftentimes I find myself pushing to the back burner, and then I'm like 2 or 3 days late on it, I'm trying to get caught up. And I find myself, even though I'm getting the things that I want to get done, accomplished, I still have this thing hanging over my head. And it's a great example.
And you think about that all day.
And you can't even enjoy the stuff that you are achieving.
Versus if you're to just knock it out from the get-go, it's not, it's in your head no matter what. It's attacking your brain, your to-do list, your whatever, no matter what. So just
knock it out. Step number one. Step number one, to be able to accomplish the big things by first starting with the little things. Step number one is write a list of the things that stress you out or the things that are seriously concerning you, and just knock those out first. That's awesome. Okay, so step number two is prioritize what would make you most happy if it were done. So do you do this in the same list when you write out the things that stress you out?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is literally compiling our list.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, great.
So I'm a list maker, as you can tell. And
Shocking.
so there's multiple things that stress me out, and it's silly things. Like, obviously, now that I'm a stay-at-home mom, there's things like if I walk in the calendar was driving me nuts for so long, because it was just like, oh, I can't write things down, I'll just get there. And there was other things like, gosh, I wish I could think of another. Oh, laundry. Like, oh, I wish I can just get on a pattern of doing little loads of laundry every day. And so I just kept adding little bits of that. Then I added all the areas, like spiritual. I was really overwhelmed. I didn't know the Bible as well as everybody else. So I would put, these are my goals, whatever.
Yeah.
And then it was like, what would make you most happy? So I really felt like if I can get my spiritual, like just biblical knowledge ground, like I could use that, like build my faith, and then everything else will follow. And so that was high up there. Yeah. So I started getting the habits of that, and it's just little things like daily devotionals, Bible project in a year, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So then you get that going, and that's something that kind of runs in the background. But then I take like my email the other day. Every day I open my email, I'm like, oh, I wish I could just delete all of these emails. I just don't have the time.
It's a question everybody's wondering right now. Is your inbox full? Do you have 1,000 emails waiting for you?
I did last week, but now I have 7.
Oh my gosh.
I have 7. And my goal now that I'm quarantined basically, is I don't let it go. Like if there's something I know I have to hold on to, I literally put it in a temporarily save file. Yeah. And then a month from now I can go back to that and delete them.
Yeah.
So just little things like I would open my desktop and there's just icons after icons after icons. I'm like, once I get a moment, I'm going to organize that. But then I never do because I get onto other things. And
that was your post from a couple of days ago. It was literally just organizing your phone, the apps on your phone, and getting rid of the junk and getting rid of the clutter. Because it wasn't until you posted that and I looked at my phone, I'm like, this actually is really overwhelming. Like, why do I have all these apps? I don't, it's just frustrating.
Right. And it's
such a simple thing.
It's something that you don't realize stresses you out.
Yeah.
Like if I go and try to find an app on my phone and I have to go through 8 pages, I'm like trying to do the alphabet in my head quickly. But it's like, if I were to just organize that into, I'm in the fast food line, fast food, done.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So when you equate, I know it seems like you would look at apps on your phone and say, well, how does that have a huge impact on my life? But when it's about getting in the mindset, it's about setting a standard setting a habit in your life, creating habits in your life of looking at what you're doing in the little things and organizing them and getting them in a functional lane, as you talked about, so that you can quickly execute on them. And a lot of times, I started thinking now a year in advance, hey, where do we want to be 8 months from now? Do we want to go on this vacation? Do we want to do that? Do we need to think about moving? What are the projects we need to work on now? Because, in a year, our goal is to move out of this house into a different house. Yeah. We need to start working on that now. I never would have thought about that had I not started focusing on, as you say, the little things first. So the second point was prioritize what would make you happy once you get it done. So that's why you build that list. So as you write out the list, it sounds like you figure out what will stress you out, and what stresses you out, and let's get that done first. That's at the top of the list. Second thing in the list
is just writing the list.
Oh, just writing.
Yeah, just writing a list. Write down everything that stresses you out.
Yeah.
Or that you want to get done. But
okay. Yeah. And then the second thing is prioritizing what would make you happy if it was complete. That's great. So now that we have those things written down, what's next?
So with that, kind of like a 2B, you want to break the big task down. So like if I were to just say, I want to read the Bible, period, dot. Okay, well, how am I really going to do that?
Yeah.
Okay, do I take 10 hours a day and read the whole Bible? Yeah. No, I'm going to get burnt out. I'm going to get exhausted.
Yeah.
So how can I break this down so that I'm making tiny little steps, but in the grand scheme of things, like my Bible project, year-long Bible, it ends in April.
Yeah.
And I am still on track to end in April. If I wouldn't have just taken little baby steps day after day, like, again, it goes back to that road trip. Now I'm at the finish line, just about. And so you just take all those big projects and you just keep breaking them down into doable tasks that when you say, oh, this is on my list today, I don't think I can tackle that. No, wait, I can, because all I have to do is this little part.
Yeah.
So 2B is breaking it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Breaking it down in the small task.
Yes. And
that's awesome. And then 3, focusing on one task a day, which is almost kind of leading us into what that part B is. So step number 3, focus on one task a day, but deeply focus on doing it right.
And this is where I struggle the most because, like, take a junk drawer, for instance.
Yeah.
I'm like, ooh, I can organize that, put the pens here, put the Post-its here or whatever.
Yeah.
But then all the junk, I just pick it up and put it in another drawer.
Yeah.
I've done nothing to better this situation.
Yeah.
So if you focus on those little areas and do it deeply and intently, and like kind of the Marie Kondo or whatever, where you pick something up, like, do I really need this?
Yeah.
Have I used this in the past 6 months? No. I could probably throw it away. Yeah. Or, Tierra, it's just 2 paper clips. You can, throw them away. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, but it's 2 paper clips.
But yeah.
Yeah. So when you think about that, of breaking and focusing on it, focusing on what that task is, once you've decided, hey, this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I'm focusing on in this moment. Again, so many times, sometimes you need to get in an environment and you need to afford yourself the opportunity to actually succeed when you're trying to do something.
Right.
There's times where, for whatever reason, I've told myself, and it's actually been a limitation to me, I've told myself that, well, I can't do that until I have these things in place. Frankly, to be honest, I didn't start this podcast. I talked about this for almost a year. And I always told myself, well, I can't do it until I have this piece of equipment, or I can't do it until I do this, or I can't do it until I do that. And the thing was, I was just talking myself out of doing it because, frankly, I was afraid of doing it, to be honest. But it wasn't until I sat down and focused and said, okay, I'm going to do this. What do I need to do it? And I'm sending out an invite and I'm starting this next week. It was a little bit stressful.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do it. But when you focus on what you're going to do, you can get to success.
And now that doesn't seem so hard.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
It was a little thing.
It's the same exact thing with Enid MOPS. I was like, okay, gosh, this is overwhelming. We need fundraising. We need people. We need mentor moms. We need all these things.
Yeah.
And it was just like, okay, Tierra, focus.
Yeah.
You just get in that moment where you just like write everything down, focus, break it down, and then do it.
Yeah, completely. And I love this last point you have on here is point number 4, which is, I was going to say it was almost a sub-bullet, but it really is its own point because we talk about these things. We're both, to me, I'm a type A, B, C, X, whatever. I have a little bit of everything in me. You're definitely a type A personality, as you said, as the Queen of Clarity has told us once before. But everybody's not like us. Right. Everybody's not like us at all. Some people may be watching us and be like, that sounds terrible. Yeah. I'm literally going to shut off this podcast if you mention organization one more time.
Yeah.
But there's an allowance for that. You may not be like us. You may be the exact opposite of us. But here's the awesome part, is there's still the opportunity for you to succeed in the small things. Because point number 4 is this. Keep in mind what your personality is like.
Right.
It matters who you are.
It totally matters.
Why?
Because, like I was telling you earlier, I'm a task-oriented person. My husband is a relationship-oriented person. And so for me, I can do tasks all day, all night, and be just totally satisfied. But I probably wouldn't have talked to my kids. I probably wouldn't have talked to my husband, and that totally jeopardizes our relationship. So if you know that you are going to be the type A person that you have to get everything done, pump the brakes.
Yeah.
1, you're going to get wore out, and 2, you're going to run out of stuff to do. Yeah. So that's the thing when the whole quarantine thing, I'm like, oh my gosh, look at all these things I can do. But I'm like, wait, I could knock this out. I could get all this done in a day and then be bored out of my mind. Yeah. And if you pump the brakes, you'll be able to focus on the other areas like relationships that, if you take a personality test and you can see what fuels you, what irks you. And I just struggle with having deep relationships because I enjoy tasks so much. Yeah. So that's something to keep in mind. And if you're a type B person, anyone can do small things. Yeah. Anyone. Yeah. So this is kind of a plan for everybody, I think.
Yeah. One of the other things to think about is this, is that if you're if you're a free goer, you're just easy goer, hey, I don't want to have priorities, I don't want to have to do these things. One of the things I heard somebody say one time that was so important is that by bringing a little bit of organization into your life, it actually allows you to be more free-flowing. Yeah. Because you knock out the things you have to get done, bills have to get paid, the kids have to be fed, schoolwork has to get taken care of, we have to go to work. But if you are a free spirit and you say, hey man, I don't want to be confined by anything, that's great. Then allow yourself to have a little bit of organization to allow yourself the maximum amount of freedom, which is awesome. That is good. I'll say it twice. If you are a free spirit and you say, I don't want to be pinned down by anything at all, that's great. Then bring a little bit of organization in the little things as we've talked about to allow yourself the maximum amount of freedom that you can possibly have. That's good for everybody, honestly. Totally. Okay, parting shots. What do we got? It's been an awesome, awesome episode here on Legacy Podcast with your winning coach, Kinsley Jordan, and the Queen of Clarity, Teara Parker.
I feel like I need a crown.
You do for sure.
And a tiara,
for sure.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Hey, do yourself a favor. Follow Teara Parker on social. We'll have her social media stuff on the screen right now. Make sure you follow her on social media because her encouragement each and every day is going to help you stay connected with what your goals are and make certain that you have more freedom in your own life. Follow her, Tierra. Thanks so much for joining us here at the Legacy Podcast. Make sure you follow Tierra and subscribe right now to the Legacy Podcast at the link right over there. You can join us, and we'll join you next time right here with your winning coach, Kinsley Jordan, on Legacy. See ya.